Hello and welcome back to the Military Time. Today, we bring you an in-depth look at one of the most defining conflicts in modern history, the United States versus Afghanistan. A war that began in the aftermath of the September 11 attacks and evolved into the longest military engagement in American history. This is not just a story of military might, but one of strategy, politics, sacrifice, and consequences that continue to shape the world today. It all began on a quiet morning, September 11, 2001. The world watched in horror as the twin towers of the World Trade Center fell. The United States, stunned and enraged, identified the culprits Al-Qaeda, a terrorist organization led by Osama bin Laden, who was believed to be hiding in Afghanistan under the protection of the Taliban regime. Within weeks, the United States prepared for what would become its first major war of the 21st century. On October 7, 2001, the U.S. launched Operation Enduring Freedom with advanced technology, precision airstrikes, and a coalition of allied forces. The U.S. military began a full-scale assault on Taliban positions. Within months, the Taliban government collapsed. The capital, Kabul, was taken, and a new interim Afghan government was established under Hamid Karzai. The mission seemed successful, Al-Qaeda was on the run, and the Taliban was driven from power. But the reality was far more complicated. While the United States celebrated an early victory, the insurgency had only just begun. The Taliban retreated into rural strongholds in neighboring Pakistan, regrouping and waiting for their moment to return. Meanwhile, U.S. forces found themselves in a long and costly battle, not against a traditional army, but against a guerrilla movement that knew the terrain, blended with civilians, and struck from the shadows. As the years passed, the conflict transformed. The initial mission to destroy Al-Qaeda turned into a prolonged effort to rebuild a nation. Billions of dollars were poured into Afghanistan to create infrastructure, schools, and a democratic government. Yet corruption, tribal divisions, and weak governance crippled progress. The United States soon realized it was fighting not only an insurgency, but also Afghanistan's internal chaos. By 2009, with President Barack Obama in office, the war escalated once again. A surge of more than 30,000 American troops was ordered to stabilize the country and regain control from Taliban insurgents. Major offensives were launched in southern Afghanistan. Helmand, Kandahar, and other volatile regions became battlegrounds where fierce firefights and deadly ambushes defined daily life. Soldiers, despite temporary victories, the Taliban's influence persisted. The war became one of attrition, a test of endurance, patience, and public opinion back home. Meanwhile, the human cost kept rising. Thousands of American soldiers were killed, and tens of thousands were wounded. For Afghan civilians, the price was even higher: countless lives lost in crossfire, drone strikes, and suicide bombings. The war had created a humanitarian crisis, with millions displaced and infrastructure reduced to rubble in many areas. In 2011, a major symbolic victory came when U.S. Navy SEALs located and killed Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, Pakistan. The world expected this to mark the beginning of the end of America's war in Afghanistan. Yet, even with bin Laden gone, the Taliban remained powerful. They controlled large swaths of territory, operated with renewed confidence, and continued to undermine the Afghan government. Over the next decade, the war dragged on. The United States reduced troop numbers, shifting focus to training and equipping Afghan forces. The idea was to let Afghanistan defend itself, but as the U.S. presence shrank, the Taliban grew bolder. Corruption plagued the Afghan army, and many units surrendered or defected when challenged. The dream of a stable democracy began to fade. Then came 2020. After years of negotiation, the United States, under President Donald Trump, signed a peace agreement with the Taliban in Doha, Qatar. The deal promised a full withdrawal of American troops in exchange for Taliban guarantees to prevent terrorism and engage in peace talks with the Afghan government. But once again, history took a darker turn. In 2021, President Joe Biden announced the final withdrawal of U.S. forces. As American troops pulled out, the Taliban launched a nationwide offensive. Within weeks, Afghan defenses collapsed. On August 15, 2021, the world watched in disbelief as the Taliban entered Kabul virtually unopposed. The Afghan president fled, and 20 years of U.S. involvement came crashing down overnight. Images of chaos at Kabul airport flooded global media, desperate Afghans clinging to airplanes, families trying to escape, and U.S. soldiers managing a frantic evacuation. The operation, known as the Kabul Airlift, became one of the largest in history. More than 120,000 people were evacuated in just days, but the scenes also marked the symbolic end of America's longest war. The war in Afghanistan cost the United States over $2 trillion, more than 400 American soldiers' lives, and countless civilian casualties. For Afghanistan, the toll was immeasurable: decades of instability, lost generations, and the return of Taliban rule. Now, years later, the question remains, what did it all achieve? The Taliban once again governs Afghanistan, enforcing strict Islamic laws. Women's rights have been rolled back, the economy has collapsed, and millions face starvation. The very objectives that the U.S. and its allies fought for, democracy, stability, and human rights, have largely vanished. However, the war changed global politics forever. It reshaped military strategies, counter-terrorism operations, and the way nations approach foreign intervention. The use of drones, special operations, and cyber warfare all became central to modern military doctrine. And for the U.S., the lessons of Afghanistan remain a constant reminder that even the most powerful military can face defeat when fighting in unfamiliar terrain against an enemy without borders. Today, Afghanistan stands at a crossroads once again. While some seek peace and progress, others continue to fight. The United States, though no longer on Afghan soil, still faces the consequences of its longest war, both politically and morally. Veterans carry the scars, both seen and unseen, and families still ask whether the sacrifices were worth it. As the dust settles, one thing is clear: the United States versus Afghanistan war was not just a conflict between two sides. It was a clash between ideology and reality, between power and endurance. It reshaped alliances, tested nations, and reminded the world that no victory in war comes without a heavy price. This is the story of a war that began with vengeance and ended with reflection, a story of 20 years that changed the world forever. Thank you for watching. You're watching Military Time. Stay tuned for more updates, analysis, and exclusive reports from around the world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more global military insights.